On this profile, I make content belonging to three major topics: Asatru, pagan philosophy, and the criticism of monotheism, namely elements of Christianity and Islam. And some people has been asking me why I do this last one, why I am even bothering with criticizing other religions, and I thought it would make sense to make a short video explaining my reasons to you. Now the first one is pretty straightforward. I have a research in an academic setting which recently has been focusing on understanding the polytheistic, the pagan mindset, and criticizing the monotheistic mindset. And for me to bring this topic to you and get feedback here and get into discussion here with pagans, Christians or Muslims actually helped me develop my own research. Second, I also have personal reasons to have a grudge against these religious movements. It comes from the fact that I come from a Central Eastern European country called Hungary. Now there were few traumatic events in Hungary, and two of them are actually connected to monotheistic colonization, namely Christianization in the 11th century and the Ottoman colonization in the 16th century. Now Christianization has been destructive in most European cultures, but in Hungary it basically eradicated most of our knowledge about our original, natural, nomadic lifestyle and religion. And it's pretty depressing to see that it's even difficult to fill one book with all the knowledge that got preserved, which should demonstrate you how powerful this destruction was. And when it comes to the Ottoman Empire, it was a very classic colonization that oppressed Hungarian people and Hungarian culture. Whole regions got completely desolated because the settlements got destroyed, artifacts, cattle and even buildings stolen, people genocided and enslaved en masse. So yeah, these are very strong traumas in the Hungarian culture memory, and it reminds me how lucky I am that I live in a secular country today, that I'm not living in the Muslim Hungary and I'm not living in the Christian Hungary. And it gives me not just an academic but also a personal connection to this whole criticism. And finally, the third remark that I have to make is that I couldn't even create pagan content without criticizing Christianity. And that comes from the single fact that most of my audience comes from post-Christian or post-Islamic environments. So even if they are not Christian themselves or not Muslim themselves, their preconceptions and their ideas about religions comes from these traditions. And for me to properly explain the pagan mindset, I have to first deconstruct those preconceptions to my audience. Now I also want to make two remarks before I finish this video. One of them is that as a polytheist, I of course completely support the freedom of worship, and I believe that Christians and Muslims have the same rights to worship their God in Hungary, in Europe, and I would even fight for the right to worship their God. Also, my point here is not to demonize any culture, ideology or tradition. There are many cultural achievements, there are many thinkers, and there are many teachings that I appreciate from these religious traditions, and I keep appreciating and acknowledging them. But with the same logic, I will also continue to call out those elements, those teachings and those movements that I find morally unacceptable. And finally, I should also explain that in 2025, I find Christianity a slightly more acceptable movement than Islam. Christianity, at least in the West, has gone through hundreds of years of secularization, and it became much less violent and aggressive than it was in the past. And in many European countries, Christians generally behave very tolerantly. Not in all of them, of course, there are still many problems, but it's far better than what I see with Muslims today. As a matter of fact, Islam went through the complete opposite development than Christianity. Muslims had a golden age in medieval times. It was highly developed and I appreciate it a lot. But ever since the fall of Baghdad, it has basically going down on a slope, becoming more and more barbaric. And today I can confidently say that if I look at Muslim politics, the major organizations and movements that exist in the world under the banner of Islam, they are against modern European values. They are against human rights. I am very strong on the opinion that at least in its current form, it is incompatible with European societies, and it would really need to go through a very strong inner theological revolution to become compatible with our values.